Hey, welcome back everyone. In today's video, we're kicking things up a notch with our Laravel project. We want to start adding some features. But in order to do that, we need to add some tests first. Since we're going to try and follow the test-driven development methodology, or for short TDD, we got to write those tests first before we can actually get there, right? So we're going to be aiming for over 90% test coverage. And trust me, we're already off to a great start. Why? Because Laravel Jetstream gives us out of the box test coverage on the Laravel Jetstream features, sure, but still a 79.6% coverage right there, right away. And that's going to be useful because we are using a lot of the Jetstream features, and that is part of the decision we made to go with Jetstream, right? So you may notice that my terminal looks a little bit different, and that's because I found this really awesome app called Warp.dev, I believe. I found it at a conference that I recently attended, and it's actually pretty awesome. So I'm going to be trying it out for a little bit. So that's why my terminal looks a little bit different to previous videos. Quick tip, if you're running your tests, don't use your regular .env file. Create a new file like this one called .env.testing. It should have all the same values with potentially one or two tweaks as necessary, and that will have everything we need for testing. This can help us avoid any messy configurations that can cause issues when we're running tests. And because I also did this myself, so I want to warn you guys and make sure you don't make the same mistake. Do not source your .env file or the .env.testing file. Don't source them. That just creates a bunch of headaches when you're trying to run testing. So to verify that we have a clean environment, let's print out our environment variables using print env and c. And as you can see here, we don't have any Laravel specific configuration inside of the shell that we're using. Now, if I were to go back in and resource the .env file and hit print env, we would see that I've got all these different variables that come from the Laravel.env file. If anything looks off to you, that it like something that shouldn't be there is there or whatever, just try maybe opening a new fresh cell to clear the environment variables and you should be good to go. This setup will help ensure that your tests run smoothly and without surprises. All right. To get the coverage reports I'm showing in this video, you will need to have xDebug installed and configured. Here's a really quick review of what you would need to do. So you would have to install xDebug using whatever package manager you're using for your system. The installation of xDebug is not in scope for this particular video. Then you would open up your php.ini file, and by typing php-ini, it will tell you where your ini file is that's being used. And so when you open it, look for these lines, and if they don't exist, and you'll need to make sure that you have these lines inside it. Because without it, you will not be able to see a coverage report the way that I will be showing. You might potentially have to restart your PHP service, but that would be about it. Another quick note here is that we need to make sure for our test to pass and for the functionality that we want to use, we'll need to make sure that the user model implements must verify email class. And with that in place, everything should work seamlessly for our emails and email verification. Okay, here's where things get fun. Out of the box, like I said, Laravel Jetstream starts us off with 79.6% coverage. But we're not going to stop there because I am setting a personal goal to be able to keep my coverage above 90%. And if you're going to be following along with me, then that would mean that you would be doing the same. So when we add more feature tests, we're going to have to make sure that it stays above 90%, which should not be that hard since we're going to be using AI for a lot of it. There should be a card appearing in the top right corner right now as I'm speaking. So click that card to catch up on the full playlist, or like I said, to save it. So as I mentioned, I want to get to 90% or higher coverage. So therefore, I'm going to have to add some additional tests of my own in order to get there. So I have already written some of these tests in order to get to above 90%. So for the sake of time, I am going to copy paste them and then show you what I've done instead of writing them from scratch or using AI. So first we're going to look here at the existing unit tests that come shipped by default with Jetstream. As we can see, this is how we get to the existing coverage that we already have. And I'm going to add a folder inside of the feature tests, and I'm going to call it app because it's going to be for our app, right? So inside of app right now, we've got nothing. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the add member test. So we're going to add additional testing for the add member. So if we swap over to the terminal here, we can see that there are some instances here where we don't have good coverage. So we can see that the actions Jetstream add team member, it is currently sitting at 0%. And that's why it's impacting our total coverage here and we're low. We've also got for team invitation, I believe it is, yeah. And for a couple of others where we don't have that high coverage. But I have 3 tests that, or feature test files that should get us over the hump. So switching back over to our IDE to VS Code. So let's walk through this first. So we're using all the standard stuff that we normally would use inside a feature test. So I'm going to skip the boilerplate stuff, like including the namespaces, etc. And let's just jump into the test. So here we've got test team member can be added. So we're using the fake library, and we're going to be using that a lot with the AI creating our unit tests, and whether it's the AI or us at the end of the day. So we're using a lot of mock testing, mockery, and this is basically going to add member to the team. And then this is going to test whether the email exists to add the team member. So we can see I've already added all this code, and if you want, and like I said at the beginning of the series, please feel free to pause if you want to copy this code as well to type it in on your own. Pause the video so that you can follow along. This function will test the user cannot be added if it's already on the team, so making sure that you can't add a user twice because it already exists. So just checking and making sure that that logic works. Therefore, we are going to call this one, it's going to be my awesome app / tests, and then / feature / app, and then we're going to call it add team member test.php. And now we've got that test, and I'm going to add all 3 and cross my fingers and hope that they all are successful. So this one is going to test team invitations can be created with valid data. So you can see we're sending an email to invite the person to the team. Then we've got team invitation mass assignment protection. Test team invitation belongs to a team, and this will help get us over that hump. And we're going to save this one in the same directory, and we're going to call it team invitation test.php. And then lastly, I'm going to add this one, and let's just save this first before I walk through it. And this is going to be update user profile information test.php. So in this one, test user can update profile information with valid data. So here we're updating information with data that would work. And here we're test email change triggers verification notification. And then test user can upload profile photo. Again, please pause the video if you want to follow along and copy these tests, or alternatively, feel free to create your own. I encourage you as well, if it's important to you to have that high coverage that I'm aiming for. And then we have here test validation errors are returned for invalid input. So if we give the wrong kind of data, we should get error messages. Then we've got test email must be unique except for current user. Test photo must be valid, format, and size. So we're testing for all these things because all these things are not out of the box with Jetstream. We get a lot with Jetstream, but these particular things, for some reason, I don't know why, they weren't included. And like I said, I want to have above 90%. Now with that done, let us swap back to the terminal and run the tests and see if we get to the coverage that we're looking for, which is over 90. Let's also see if it even works. Maybe I have an error or a problem we might have to figure out. So we'll go PHP artisan test -- coverage so I can see the coverage. Looks like things are passing. And there we go. And look at that. Look at that. 95.7%. So we can see that the add team member is now at 100%. And we've also, there's also been several other ones, and there's also been several other classes of functionality that we've upped the level of coverage as well. So we've also gotten the team invitation here up to 100%. So now that we have this base of 95.7% coverage, now we can use this as a proper starting point to jump into start creating more tests come in the future and in future videos as well. If you found this video helpful, I'd appreciate it if you hit that like button and subscribe for more Laravel magic. Stay tuned for the next video where hopefully we will go into some more awesome Laravel stuff.